All right. Well, good morning, everybody. I'm Georgia Whitten. I'm Assistant Vice President of Financial Aid at Tulane University. Can you guys hear me okay? Good, thank you. Today, for about a half an hour, we're going to be talking about financial aid for Tulane law students. I don't know if there's any other announcements that anyone needs to make on behalf of Tulane Law School at this time.
Nope, you're good to go.
All right, great. All right. So we're going to cover a lot of ground, and I hope I don't bore anybody with this presentation. Hopefully full of some useful advice and some information. First of all, let me introduce the Financial Aid Office of Tulane Law School, which is Sheila Bauer and Claudine Sikorsky. These two financial aid staff are, I have to brag, I think they're the best in the country. I really do. And I think you'll get to know and love them if you haven't already had any dealings with them. Maybe you will in the future, but I think you'll agree that they're very attentive and they try to find, get the information to you as soon as possible and find solutions. We have our financial aid office in the law school actually in the building on the first floor within the admissions suite. And so when classes are going on and you're physically in the building, you have the opportunity to pop in at any time, really from 9 to 5, if you have a question or a concern, and one or both will be there to assist you. So feel free to take the opportunity to meet them if you in person at some point. And in the meantime, don't hesitate to contact them. In this very unusual age where we're working remotely, we do recommend that the best way to get them right now is just to email. And I know this is backwards, right? I don't know how to do this. I didn't know how to write backwards, but it's finaid@law.tulane.edu. So don't hesitate, to drop them a line if you have any questions.
I also put it in the comments, so you can get it from there too.
Oh, good. It won't be backwards. So as we are right now, I think the vast majority of students who are seeking financial aid beyond any scholarships, which by the way, let me just spend a moment on scholarships. At Tulane Law School, scholarships are given out through the admission office at the time of admission. And we in the financial aid office get word of the scholarship and we package it. And then our job is to make sure that you understand any educational loan availability that you might need and how to get to that. That's our major job. One of our other jobs is to then serve as sort of scholarship police, because each scholarship is announced with certain renewal requirements. There are certain attendance and GPA requirements, and we're sort of charged with policing that and making sure that they're renewed properly. So if you have any questions about the terms of your scholarship and how it's renewed, we can probably help you with that. But as far as, will I get a scholarship or the amount of the scholarship, that's really not within our purview. But we do work with the admission office as far as making sure they're renewed properly. So at this point in our office, in the financial aid office, we're very concerned to make sure that those students who need to borrow educational loans understand how to do it and that we get the funding to you in time when you need it. And so that's kind of what we're focusing on right now. Some of you will need to borrow educational loans now or later, and some of you won't. So I'm just going to spit, but those who do need to borrow educational loans, this is a very, very important topic. So I'm going to spend some time on that right now. Okay, so just let me get through this. If you do need to borrow some or all of educational loan eligibility, at this time, you should have some sort of an idea of how much you can borrow. If you do not, then you need to reach out to Sheila or Claudine immediately, because right now is the time when we're expecting the disbursements to come in. If you think you might need to borrow, maybe not now, but you might need to later, don't fret. The deadline to apply to borrow is almost at the end of the semester. But you do need to make sure that you've done a few things before the semester ends, or else you will have run out of time. Also, conversely, if you have set up to borrow and you find out that maybe you're borrowing more than you need to, don't fret. Reach out to Sheila or Claudine, let them know what you'd like to do. You need to reduce a loan, and we have the ability to send money back without any fees or penalty with 120 days of disbursement, right? We do have some time to do that. You just have to let us know, and we can do that, no problem. At this point, for those of you who have told us how much you want to borrow, we have been, Claudine and Sheila have been working hard to work with the Department of Education or your lenders if you're using a private loan, and getting those loans ready to disperse. We expect the first disbursements to credit to accounts over the weekend. And so you should be able to start seeing those credits in your accounts receivable account, over the weekend or by Monday. Reach out if you don't see the disbursements by Monday, and we'll investigate and see if there's any problem. You should have the ability to log into Gibson Online and to view your accounts receivable account there. Sheila, I don't know, do you have any special advice about that, or Claudine?
I haven't heard of any students who haven't been able to get into Gibson Online. So if you're having problems, you can reach out to us initially. We will probably put you through to the technology people if you're having problems with it. If you were recently admitted, then you may not have access just yet.
Okay, thank you. You might want to check it out just right now, because if you've paid a deposit, an admission deposit, unless you have been admitted very recently, you should see a credit for the amount that you paid for your seat deposit, which of course will reduce your bill for the fall. And that sort of leads me into my next topic. For those of you who are borrowing to help cover or partially cover your living expenses, that is, you're borrowing because you're going to need to, help pay your rent or your food or so forth. What's going to happen is your loans will, if you look at your accounts receivable account now, if you're registered for hours, you'll see tuition and fee charges. And then if you have been awarded a scholarship and you're enrolled at least 10 hours, you should at least see some sort of a reduction on your bill, if not now, by Monday. And then the loans will be crediting not this weekend, but next weekend. Did I say this weekend? It's not this weekend, it's next weekend. You should see those loan disbursements also credit. So as of, let's see, August 10th, I think is the Monday when everything should have hit. If you're borrowing for living expenses, either food or room and board, you should see not an amount that you owe to Lane, but a credit balance, because the money that would have come in would have overpaid what you owe the school, right? More money would have come into your account than you owed, and you should be seeing a credit balance. Sometimes that's called a negative balance. Sometimes you see it, parentheses, but that's what you would expect. And that's the amount that you want to move into your bank account, so then you can start to use it. So at that point, what you would do in Gibson Online is to go into the accounts receivable part and request what they call a credit balance refund. It's not really a refund. You're not being refunded anything. It's your money. You borrowed it. But it's the amount that you've overpaid the school and you would like to have it pushed into a bank account. And there are links there that allow you to put in your bank account information and so forth. If you can do that now, you might want to get it out of the way, because my understanding is when you initially set that up, there is some, management administrative time where I think they call it, they ping your bank account to make sure it exists. So that, may take a few days when it's initially set up. So you might think about getting that out of the way now, so that when you do request your credit balance refund, it moves into your bank account as quickly as possible. A couple of things about that procedure: when you request your credit balance refund, it's not an automated process. There's an actual human being that has to review it and put through the request. And that human being is Ms. Bauer. So give her just a minute. It doesn't.
And Claudine.
And Claudine, thank you, Claudine. So it doesn't happen instantaneously. So allow a little bit of time. And the other just general tip, don't spend money from your bank account until you have money in your bank account. Just a tip. I've seen that happen. Just make sure that it actually went to your bank account, before you start spending money out of it. Speaking of spending money out of your bank account, I will confess to you, I tell this to everybody every year, that we are very unfair to you, because this whole system is rigged, because this big chunk of money, what happens is half of your loans and half of your scholarship disperse at the beginning of each semester. So, if you're on your own and you're borrowing all your living expenses and so forth, at the beginning of every semester, there's this big chunk, boom, that goes into your bank account, this giant much money. And we expect you to have the self-control, discipline, and planning to make it all the way through the fall and a few weeks of the January as well, before you get any more. So the word budget is, I don't like it, but I tell you, I don't think I could do what we're asking you to do. For those of you who are completely on your own, and relying all on this. So my hat's off to you, and God help you. Just do the best you can, make sure you budget, plan it out and so forth. Because if you're borrowing up to your cost of attendance, that's pretty much all that you can get. We have very limited wiggle room to help you out, because the way this thing is set up is that your financial aid, including educational loans, cannot exceed your cost of attendance for the year. And even if it's a private loan, if it's an educational loan, we have to, watch and make sure that everything is within the cost of attendance. Hopefully you've been notified of what your cost of attendance is for the year, but I will tell you, there's a little wiggle room. The places that we can wiggle are if you buy a computer and you, during the year or for the academic year, and you need to borrow for that as well explicitly, we're allowed with documentation to bump your cost of attendance by that amount, or $2,500, whatever is less, one time during your law school career. So keep that in mind. If you need that, that's good to know. Also, those of you who have children and you need to pay somebody to care for your kids so that you can attend law school, we can include documented childcare expenses to the cost of attendance. They do need to be documented. And then finally, the other thing I guess is worth noting, especially now with health on our mind, there is a health component to your cost of attendance, and that's supposed to cover medical insurance plus Band-Aids and any other health-related stuff that you have. But if you're on some sort of medication or additional health expenses that you have out of pocket, you can increase your cost of attendance with documentation. the amount that exceeds, the health component of your cost of attendance. So once again, your scholarship credit should show by August the 3rd. Your loan disbursements should show by August the 10th, and probably start coming in the weekend before that. And if you don't see something or something's going to miss, don't hesitate to contact us so that we can figure out what's going on. If you have been a bad person in a past life and have horrible karma and everything goes wrong for you, we do have the ability to do an emergency loan, but not until after Labor Day. And so I think Labor Day is the 7th this year. So you need to have enough money to survive until Labor Day. And then we can at least give you some short-term assistance until we figure out what's going on with whatever went wrong. I am happy to say that apparently Karma has approved. We haven't seen a lot of that in the last many years, actually. So you really would have had to be bad to have that happen to you, I think. I do want to spend just a little time talking about the future in case you decide to do several different things like go to school during the summer. We do have a lot of summer programs, and you can borrow educational loans for that. You can borrow federal loans as long as you take at least 5 hours. And what we do is we set up custom cost of attendance for whatever your summer plans are. You'd need to be pursuing something that would go against your law degree. But we do have students go to summer school all the time, and we start taking information about that usually late March, early April. So that is possible. Another thing, especially at Tulane, is there's quite a few dual degrees that are available to law students. And that too turns out to be sort of a custom situation depending on where you are with the education. Generally speaking, if you receive a Tulane Law scholarship for a dual degree, in almost all cases, I think part of the point of a dual degree is that you get 2 degrees in fewer semesters than you would have taking them sequentially. And for those semesters, fall or spring, that you're enrolled primarily as a law student, that's when the law scholarship is activated. For example, if you're in a JD MBA, the business school scholarships are activated during those periods that you are primarily a business student, and then you have some semesters where you're a law student. But they're creating new dual degrees all the time. Don't fret. We'll work through whatever we need to work through with you. I don't know if Claudine or Sheila, you have anything to say about dual degrees?
The only thing I would say is that we do work really closely with the business school or any other schools that are involved with a student's dual degree. And yeah, we have been working through any issues, and it doesn't seem to be any problem at all. Your cost of attendance does change depending on which other school you were involved in. So we just, communicate a lot and make sure everything's all set for you. No worries.
I am going to spend just a minute on a very strange form. Usually we do this in person and we hand the form out and I explain it, but I'm just going to tell you about it and then I'll let you decide what you want to do. It is called the Release of Title IV Funds. And the form has to do with our beloved federal government and regulations. And it's a good, the intention is really, really good. The federal government basically says, students borrow federal loans and, it's supposed to pay for tuition and fees and, living expenses. And schools, if a student borrows a federal loan, the only money that you can keep from that federal loan is the amount that goes against tuition and fees. And if they're living on campus, room and board. Otherwise, you can't keep that money, which is, you know, that's good. They're looking out for you. It's great. However, what happens, and there is a way that you as a student, as a federal loan borrower, can opt out of that mandate. And that is the form I just mentioned. It's called Release of Title IV Funds. And if you don't fill out the form, that's fine. But I would fill it out if I were borrowing a federal loan. And this is why. Because at Tulane, you'll find over time when you're on campus that there are other things that you can charge to your Tulane account. Like you can go to the bookstore and you can charge books, or you can charge, you know, meal plan bucks if you want to do that, or I don't know, whatever. If you go to the health center and you pick up a prescription, you can charge that. Or they even have a computer store where you can charge to your account. You can charge to a computer, which is great. And if you're borrowing federal loans, what happens is when the loans first disperse and you have a credit balance and you request the credit balance, what you'll get pushed to your bank account is the actual difference between all charges and the money that came in. However, if that form is not on file within the next 2 weeks, if you have any other charges on your account, like, you know, those things I mentioned, you will get a check mailed to you, U.S. mail, and the charge will go back on your account. Because accounts receivable has to, within 2 weeks, make sure that all the federal money is pushed out to you that doesn't cover tuition and fees. So we've had some real wackadoodle situations where, you know, someone thought they've paid their bill in full at Tulane, and then they get anti-credited because this paper check goes out for the rest of the federal funds. So it's just one of those good intentions that sometimes goes awry. If you want to fill the form out, it is available on the accounts receivable website. And I just talked to the manager there, and she said you can fax it or email it to their office. That would be fine. Or once you make it on campus, if you want to fill one out in the financial aid office, if we're there, I don't know how often we'll be physically in the office. At the very beginning, you can do it then. So I'm going to stop talking about that. It's called the Release of Title IV Funds form. It's a PDF on the Tulane Accounts Receivable website. Okay. Is there anything I haven't covered that you need to know about?
Good morning. I have a question. Does your office or staff communicate at all with the veteran coordinator on campus regarding
Yes.
GI Bill funds?
Yeah, actually, that's in my notes. There is a GI coordinator. Her email address is bramie@tulane.edu. And she takes care of all of that wonderful coordination between the Veterans Administration and Tulane. She's really, really good. As you know, I'm sure you know how long it takes the VA to process stuff. I'm just saying.
Yeah, that's my concern is what's the general timeline looking like? I guess I'll talk to her about it.
Yeah, it's long. You know, like I said, if you need emergency short-term funding right after Labor Day, we can help with that.
Thank you very much.
All right, so I'm going to say way back in the day, many years ago, 1988, for a long time, I worked in the law financial aid office, and I always say this: I love law students. I love law students because you guys notice everything, and you're like the canary in the coal mine, and you do a wonderful, wonderful job of that. You read fine print well, and we really appreciate that. Having said that, please, if you have a question right now, let me know. Okay, so I see someone say the Title IV forms form again. So the Title IV release form, it's a release of Title IV funds, is basically a form that you fill out giving permission for Tulane to use federal loan dollars to pay for charges that aren't tuition and fees. Hopefully that makes sense. If you don't fill it out, Tulane cannot hold on to any loan disbursement to pay for anything other than tuition and fees. So if you charge to your Tulane account, or you expect to ever, and you borrow federal loans, you might want to fill it out. It wouldn't hurt.
I would just add to this, my short version that I always tell students is, if you don't fill it out, Tulane sends you a check for money you actually owe Tulane. Trust me, just fill it out. It'll make your life so much easier.
I mean, you don't have to, but we advise that, yeah.